Good day, students. Welcome back. As you know, we're busy discussing chapter 4. So in my previous video, I explained chapter 4, started explaining manufacturing overheads. And then we explained what is calculated at the start of the financial year, during the financial year, and at the end. So budgeted MOH is calculated at the start, as well as the predetermined rate. Applied overheads is calculated when production takes place, and then overapplied is calculated at the end of the financial year. Then I spoke about predetermined rate. It's also known as recovery rate, applied MOH rate, and application rate. When you want to calculate it, you must use budgeted amounts, and there are 7 different bases to choose from. And then I did some activities with you. Activity 1, activity 2, I did with you. And I did this with you in class already. So it's just a revision exercise. And then I spoke about the steps. So we've covered 1 and 2. In this video, we're going to cover number 3 and number 5. Number 3 is applied overheads, and number 5 is when you want to calculate cost of production. Now, as you can remember from chapter 1, we spoke about cost of production. There are 3 formulas. We're going to focus on the 1. Direct material plus direct labor plus applied MOH. Now, let's go to the notes. Let's look at applied overheads. Whenever goods is produced, every product produced in the factory and every job completed in the factory must be charged with the following: the actual material used, the cost of the actual material used, the cost of the actual labor, and applied overheads. Now, why don't you use actual overheads to be added to these two? Because the actual overheads is only known at the end of the financial year. Now, whenever they give you information and they speak about the actual job, they will give it a job number. Now, sometimes you must calculate the applied overheads, and sometimes it's given to you. Now, in my example that I've got here, which I'm going to post as part of the answers, here you can see I've got here how to calculate applied overheads and total cost of production. So that means step 3 and step 5. Now, sometimes, as you will see in the activities, they will tell you calculate total manufacturing cost without telling you to calculate applied overheads. Now, you know, when you want to calculate cost of production, you must have 3 cost components. Now, let's look at example 1. Job 50. Now, like I said, for it to be actual production, it must be given a job number. And there's job 50. Predetermined rate, which means it was given to you. Base labor hours. What does that mean? They use labor hours as the base to calculate the predetermined rate. Now, this is all the information regarding job 50, which means this is actual production. So the actual labor hours was 10. The actual machine hours used was 20. The actual labor cost was 2,000 Rand. The actual material cost was 2,000. The actual labor was 5,000. Now, if I was to ask you, can you calculate cost of production for job 50? No. Reason being, you only have 2 of the 3 cost components. Now, here, before you can calculate the manufacturing cost, you must calculate applied overheads. Now, there are normally 2 formulas you can use. For now, we're only going to focus on this one, which says predetermined rate times the actual outcome used as the base. I'm going to explain it to you in this example. Now, what they mean was, what they mean is you must take the predetermined rate, which is 50, times it by the actual labor hours. Why? Because you use labor hours as the base to calculate the predetermined rate. So I want to work out actual cost of production. So that means I want to work out number 5. But before I can work out number 5, I must work out number 3. So I'm going to take my 50 Rand, which is my predetermined rate, multiplied with the actual labor hours, because I use labor hours as my base. So 50 Rand times 10 gives me 500 Rand. There's my applied overheads. Now to calculate cost of production, I take my direct material, which was 2,000, plus my direct labor, which was 5,000, and my applied overheads. Now I can calculate cost of production. So just to recap, they say here, calculate total manufacturing cost. But before you can work out total manufacturing cost, you must work out your applied overheads. So here they want step 5, but before you can work out step 5, which is this, you need to work out step 3. Now, let's go to our second part of the example. Still on job 50, predetermined rate is now 20 Rand, and machine hours was used as the base. So we used actual labor hours of 10, and we used actual machine hours of 20. Our direct material cost was 2,000. Our direct labor cost was 5,000, but we don't have applied overheads. Now here, what do they ask us? They ask us calculate the total manufacturing cost. They want us to work out step 5. But what's missing? Our applied MOH. So we first need to calculate applied MOH. And what's the formula? Predetermined rate times actual outcome used as the base to calculate the predetermined rate. So what was my predetermined rate? 20 Rand. But what did I use as my base? Machine hours. So I will take 20 Rand, times it by my actual machine hours. Why don't I say times it by my labor hours? I cannot, because I did not use labor hours as the base. So I take 20 Rand times 20 machine hours gives me 400 Rand. There's my applied MOH. Now, what's the difference between number 1 and number 2? In number 1, I use labor hours as my base, and therefore I said 50 Rand times 10 labor hours. Here, I used machine hours as my base, and my predetermined was 20 Rand. Therefore, I took 20 Rand, multiplied with my actual machine hours. Now I can calculate my cost of production, because I now have all 3 cost components. We are now going to look at activity 6 from your workbook module 4. It says here, the cost accountant of DJO manufacturers provided the following information. Here's your description. Here's your actual amounts for the whole financial year. Here's your budgeted amounts that was determined at the start of the financial year, amounts for job A469. Now, this is for one job. Why? Because it has a job number and it's actual production. This year is for all the work calculated. So what are they asking you? They say calculate the predetermined overhead application rate using labor hours as the base and using direct material costs. So they are asking you to do step 1 first. Step 2, calculate the predetermined rate. And you must have 2 predetermined rates. Then they say calculate the total cost of production of job A469. Now, if you look at it, you need 3 cost components: your direct labor, your direct material, and what's missing is applied overheads. Now in 6.1.2, what are they asking you to do? They are asking you to do step 5. But in order to do step 5, you've only got 2 of the 3 cost components. So you must first calculate your applied overheads before you can do number 5. So let's go back here. So because you have 2 predetermined rates, you must work 2 applied MOH amounts before you can calculate 2 cost of production amounts. Is exactly like this one. Here, I have 2 predetermined rates, and therefore I had 2 applied MOH amounts. There's my second one, and I have 2 cost of production amounts. So please try and do activity 6.